Welcome to the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter study group. This is February 23rd, 2025. This is our 148th class. Tonight we have the pleasure of our professional associate, Chris Ketterlin, joining us. She's going to talk about leadership. In the talk, was I supposed to use a teaspoon or a tablespoon creating your leadership recipe? My name is Thea Soren. I am the president of this chapter. I'm also the vice president of career and professional development for this chapter. All that really means is I'm here to help you. So whatever you need, reach out to me. LinkedIn is the best way to do that. I have a little bit of experience in several different areas, and I want to be sure that I can bring my experience to help you, but I need to know what you need. So reaching out to me is a great way to do that. Cliff, you got that waiting room? We like to celebrate our wins. These are the folks that have reached out to us to say that our chapter was able to help them get their certifications. Those that are in red have gone on to lead other chapters. Those that are in green either lead this chapter or have led this chapter in the past, which we do appreciate. But it speaks to the fact that they feel that this chapter is beneficial for them. We hope it's beneficial for you too. This is our board. These are the folks that work tirelessly to bring the good stuff to you. We have some new people coming on board that are learning the ropes, and we're going to have some new programs coming up for you in 2025, 2026. Our mission here is to equip the business analysts with knowledge, tools, and support needed to excel in their roles through targeted training, mentorship, and fostering a professional community. We empower business analysts to drive impactful decisions, collaborate closely with stakeholders, enhance organizational efficiency, and elevate the practice of business analysis because we are the Tampa Bay IIBA. We have members from all over the world. It doesn't matter where you live. If you have a local chapter that is effective for you, great. If you don't, we're your chapter. You're welcome to join us, and we can work with you regardless of where you live to lead you in business analysis, education, and networking. We have a study group every Thursday night, January through June, and then August through the end of November. And we have that from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We also have all of these recorded on YouTube. We have Bob's Incredible Index here at rpchurchill.com. It has a good index of exactly what the topics are with links to jump directly into that portion of the YouTube so that you can just hear the parts you need. As you can imagine, after 140 something hours out there, it's hard to find what you're looking for if you don't have this, and Bob has put it together for us. We also have our Tampa Bay chapter website, which is right here. We have our events list for our chapter as well as the Bluegrass chapter, and our vendors and associates. We're putting it all out there for you so that you can know what's going on. So welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA. Bob and Esther are our chapter advisors. They have both earned their CBAP certification, and they are here to help us answer questions about the CBAP or anything else. They each have multiple degrees, so I have no doubt that they could have some insight into questions you may have. We are bringing chapter branches near you. We are starting with the Tampa chapter to have in-person get-togethers. We're scheduling a park cleanup for a park in Tampa that we are responsible for. That's coming up very soon. But if you live in another part of the Florida state and you want to have get-togethers in person, reach out to me and I'll help coordinate that. And we will need a branch executive for that branch to kind of coordinate to say, we're going to meet at this restaurant on this date. Everybody bring a puzzle or, whatever you want to do as a group. Talking about the elephant in the room, we know that there are jobs out there and we know that there is talent out there, but sometimes getting it married together is a challenge. I've been called the BA matchmaker, and what I want to do is try to work with you to help you find the jobs that you need or to be able to say, hey, we have these jobs and I can send it out to the 12 people I know that would probably qualify for the job. But again, reach out to me through LinkedIn and I'll try to help. These are the associations that we're partnering with: the Tampa Bay Women in Agile, the Tampa Bay Product Group, and some other chapters, the IIBA chapter in Ireland, the Philippines, and in Bluegrass, which is Kentucky. We've helped them, they've helped us. We're going to continue to work together, but we do appreciate our partnerships. We have a director of emerging professionals that is working to get into some of the universities here. It really doesn't have to be in Florida, but we started with the University of Tampa, and we're working on trying to get into a second university. What we want to do is we want to bring business analysis into the college so that they know that they can get a degree. They would also have a professional certification. They would also be a member of a professional organization, which will make them stand head and shoulders above the people that just have a degree. Watermark Learning has given us a discount code of 40% off of any of their products with this discount code Tampa21. I can highly recommend their CBAP study guide. It was a game changer for me, and I helped write the BABOK. So I would recommend you look at their stuff. They also have practice test questions online, which are very informative. Adaptive US has also given us a discount code for all of their live or in-demand courses, excluding the IIBA exam vouchers themselves. That would be 20% off, and they have a guarantee that if you don't pass your certification the first time, they will pay for you to be able to take it a second time. You don't pass it the second time, they will pay for you to take it one more time. So I really think that they believe in their products, and I think you could check them out. The Bluegrass chapter, this started a few weeks ago, but they have February to come on. So if you join now to this, it's a professional group. If you're intermediate business analyst, they meet on, I think this is Mondays. And if you're experienced business analyst, they meet on Tuesdays. And so in January, you got use cases, user stories, user journeys, BA role and natural ceremonies, techniques to use for agile analysis, and tough interview questions. In February, they've got 4 more different topics so that they're being led by Yulia. Yulia is a well-known business analyst, especially to teach people what it is to become a business analyst. But now she's leading these professional groups. And I tell you, having a group of people that have similar experiences but different allows you to bounce ideas off of each other and learn quite a bit. Tonight, we have Chris Ketterlin. She's going to be talking about creating your leadership recipe. I'm going to let her introduce herself whenever we get back to her. On the 27th, the Winter 2025 BABOK Study Group is starting with the Bluegrass chapter. They will give you that watermark book I told you about as part of the fee for this. Let's see. This early bird special has passed, but you can reach out to them. Also with the Bluegrass group, they do have this course that will be running, the AI for Business Analysis course. I think they've got 6 people in it right now for 3 days of 4.5 hours each. It's a pretty good deal. So I would suggest that you check it out. On January 30th, Renat is going to be talking about security, cybersecurity, in whenever you're gathering requirements. And on February 6th, I'm going to be doing a 2-hour workshop talking about enhanced RACI techniques, and we're actually going to go through a scenario and use a RACI. You'll be able to leave the class knowing how to use a RACI. On February 5th, we have a member only for the IIBA members webinar, Data Governance and Organizational Change Management. If you don't understand what data governance is, I really encourage you to check this out. It's really, really important as you're especially setting up an organization. Nadia is going to be talking about SAFE on February 6th, and specifically, what is a SAFE train? And we'll get more information on this slide very soon. Leveraging design thinking. This is very similar to what we had Oksana talk about a few, let's see, was that last week? But this is a really good program, and they have an early bird special on it until the 31st. You can take it back to your organization. And then a members public webinar, not just members only, for the IIBA, is Empowering Business Analysis with AI. These folks are highly experienced with AI as it is now. They can tell us a lot more than people that just read a book. And then on February 13th, we have Lightning Talks. Lightning Talks is pretty cool. This is a joint meeting with the Tampa Bay Women in Agile and Tampa Bay Product Group. Lightning Talks are 3 to 10 minute talks on a specific topic, and then we turn it over to the next person who wants to give a topic. We're going to center our topics on specifically Agile and working in Agile, but we are also going to open it up and we want y'all to participate. Bring something that you want to talk about, you want to present. It's just a little bit of public speaking experience, but we want your experience to be enlarged. And then Howard Pottswa is going to be talking about story mapping. I went through a course with him. It is a fantastic course about story mapping and how to prioritize and how to show dependencies. You're not going to get this by reading a book. So he does a really good job at showing real life examples and a real use case that one of many that he was running in an organization. And last one, data analytics for business analysis workshop is going to be on the 18th. I'm going to stop telling you about the future now and turn it over to Chris so that she can tell you about leadership.
Thank you so much, Thea. Thank you everyone for having me here tonight. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Chris. You're going to see it, I'm going to show you my LinkedIn slide in a minute. Christine is my full name, but I do go by Chris, so please feel free. I'm going to share my screen in just a second, and we're going to start talking about leadership and chocolate cake tonight, okay? And if you have questions as we go through this, please don't hesitate at any time to ask a question. All right, is my screen showing?
We can see the
Perfect. Oh, just went away.
How's that? Is that it?
I can see your PowerPoint.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me put that into presentation mode.
Very good.
Great. So tonight, like I said, we are going to talk about leadership. And was I supposed to use a teaspoon or a tablespoon? Before we get started, I want to say that you are all leaders. And I don't know any of you, but I know that you are leaders because you are here. You are seeking out like-minded peers. You are here in your free time. So you are interested in leadership, whether that's formal leadership or just getting better at your job, but you are a leader. As a BA, you are a leader. BAs have so many people that they work with, stakeholders, developers, QA. You are kind of the central hub of all of that. So you are a leader on your team, and I know that as well. An engineering manager that I worked with once told me that he always knew he had successful BAs on his team when there were a lot of people around that person's desk, right? A lot of activity because there were questions, and they were answering questions, they were giving guidance. So you are all leaders, but your leadership journey, they are different. It's different for all of us. Possibly you are a leader among your peers, but you are looking to be a people leader. Maybe you want to get into management. Maybe you are a people leader, but you are looking for your next promotion. Possibly you are a manager because you were really good at your job as an individual contributor and you kind of got pushed into that management role, and maybe you don't really want to be there. You liked what you were doing, but that's how we get a lot of our managers. And so you are leading, but you are still trying to figure out your leadership personality. So tonight I'm going to share stories with you about my journey. It's some personal stories. I'm going to talk about my career. I'm going to talk about my grandma's chocolate cake, and I'm going to ask you a couple of times to do some reflection on your own. If we were in person, I would have given all of you one of these recipe cards, right? That you might have in your kitchen, and I would ask you to take some notes on it. We will just stop, I think, twice throughout very shortly to have you reflect. So if you've got your phone or a piece of paper or something where you just take a few notes, that would be great, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on that. But let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Chris. Like I said, my LinkedIn profile is right there. Would love to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. That QR code, you can scan it. It should take you right to my profile, but please feel free to connect. And if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. A little bit about me. I am a former high school teacher. I taught high school social studies for 6 years. And I wish I could tell you that when I left teaching, I made a very well-informed decision on what I was going to do next and really researched career opportunities. But the school year ended, there was another company that would hire me, and that's what happened. But that was a software company, and that started the second career. We were talking about ageism at the beginning, so I will just say I've been for 15 plus years now working in software. And I have worked in professional services. I've been a BA. I've managed teams of BAs. I have managed QA teams. I've worked in enterprise architecture. I recently had a title change. I'm now a technical program manager. But the work has always kind of been the same, right? Working with groups of people and trying to produce best-in-class products. I am a pretty decent baker. It's something I enjoy doing, and I'm pretty good at it. I am a mom, and I am a conference speaker. And I tell you all of these things because I'm going to reference these pieces as we go through this talk tonight and tell you a little bit more about myself. Our goals for tonight, we are going to talk about leadership strengths. We're going to talk about resiliency strategies and growth opportunities. And my goal is that you can start to see these things in your journey. I'm going to tell you my stories, but my stories and my path don't apply to you. So hopefully I get you thinking about what you are good at, what you use for your resiliency strategies, and where you have opportunities to grow. All right, and this is the chocolate cake. This is Maxine's chocolate cake. This has been made in my family since before I was born. My grandma made it. My mom makes it. I make it. This is the cake that we use for everything, for birthdays, for celebrations, the cake that we bake when we just need some cake in our life. It is a pretty simple recipe. It is also pretty consistent. If you follow the recipe, it's going to be the same each time. It is not something that requires you to have a lot of skill in the kitchen, but it's delicious and it's very special to my family. But I will tell you that the recipe that I use when I bake this cake is not the recipe that my grandma used and that was in her recipe box. And that's kind of what inspired this talk, is the evolution of a recipe and how that can change, and the evolution of our leadership. Okay. I did put on here, who the heck is Maxine? My mom and I did a little research into this last spring, and I think it looks like this was a recipe that was published in women's magazines in the 1940s, which is probably how my grandma came across it. And she took it and she made it her own. And that is what we do with our leadership journeys. We make them our own, right? So let's start to talk about creating our recipe and what ingredients life has given us. I will say, when I put this deck together, I looked for some stock images to be professional, and then I decided to just go all in and embrace the cake theme. So you're going to see pictures of me with birthday cakes as we go through this tonight. So this is my 6th birthday. Strawberry shortcake was all the rage. My mom had the strawberry shortcake figure on there in a little house, but under all of that pink frosting was a Maxine's chocolate cake. All right. So what experiences in your life have influenced your leadership recipe? I told you that I was a high school teacher. What I did not tell you is that I did not enjoy being a high school teacher. And I did it for 6 years, and I was probably pretty miserable for 5.5. There were things that I liked. I really loved the kids. I liked working with the kids. I liked sharing new ideas. I liked those light bulb moments, but I did not like my job. And so when I left and I went to do something else, I felt bad, right? I had just gone to college. I had graduated from college, and I was going to be a teacher, and I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was a little confused about maybe what I should be doing, or what this meant for my career. If after, just a few years, I was already changing careers. And then I got this job in software, and most of that job initially was training in the field. And I realized I actually loved teaching. I did not like teaching in a public high school. And I don't know that I like teaching in a high school, but I liked teaching and I liked sharing that. And so I realized that those skills were really important. And even today, I probably reference being a teacher at least once a week. I use the things I learned, the things I did as a teacher, with groups that I work with the projects that I lead. So this is an experience that absolutely influenced my life. In its original form, it didn't work for me, but it's something that was really important. So I want you all to think about what experiences you've had that have shaped you as a leader. They could be from your childhood, they could be from your career, from your personal life. But what have you done that has made you the leader that you are today? All right. Who are the best leaders that you have worked with? And with my image here, we can all think about those leaders that we don't want to emulate, right? We could probably spend a whole session just talking about the bad leaders that we have worked with. But what I want you to think about are the people that you have worked with that have really made an impact on you. And then I want you to think about why and what you can steal from them. So I had a boss that I used to work for, and my favorite thing about her was that whenever we were in our one-on-ones, I was telling her about something, she would ask me, all right, do you just need to vent? And that's okay if you do, or is this the problem that you need to solve? And nobody had ever asked me that before in a professional setting. And I absolutely love that. And it made me think. She never gave me any indication that she didn't want to listen to me, right? That was okay. But she was offering help if I needed it, but didn't want to assume that I wanted her to jump in. And I absolutely loved that. Sometimes I realized that I just needed to get something off my chest. Sometimes I realized that while I was talking, I kind of figured out what I needed to do. And other times I realized I did need her help. Maybe she had institutional knowledge because she had been there much longer than I had. She had been a people manager for longer than I had. So maybe she had more experience dealing with a team problem that I had. But I love that. In fact, I have that written on a whiteboard in my office that I can see, and I use that with my team all the time. It is a good reminder for me that I don't have to solve their problems, and they're not always looking at me to solve their problems. And I want to empower them to solve problems on their own. But if they just need to talk, that's fine too. So that was one of my favorite things about working for her, the way she asked that question. But that might not have resonated the same with all of you. Okay, that was just what worked for me. So think about the people that you have worked for or worked with that you thought were really great leaders, and think about what it was that made them stand out to you. And then could you take some of that and make it your own, put your own spin on it so that you can use that as part of your leadership profile. And then what has prepared you for leadership? So hopefully you have been questioned, and hopefully in a polite, nice way along the way, about why you want to do something, a process improvement you've suggested, a change you want to make. But hopefully you've been questioned. Hopefully you've questioned yourself, and hopefully those two things have influenced who you've led and how you have led. So when I went from being a BA, an individual contributor, to a manager, I switched companies. And where I had first been a BA was a healthcare company, highly regulated. FDA could have come in and audited our requirements. And we were waterfall. All right. So our requirements were very lengthy. They all traced back. Every single requirement was its own line, was identified, traced back to a test case. There was a lot of process in that, but that's how I learned to become a BA. So that's what I did. I was hired at this position to come in and make some changes to their BA processes. And so when I came in, I knew what I had been taught, but I wanted to, I wanted to think about what this team needed, but it's really easy to default to what we know. And so as I started to make some changes, some of the other leaders in the department were questioning, why do we need to do this? Some of the people on my team, is this, do we have to do it like this? And so I took a step back and thought, I'm being questioned. And so I questioned myself. What did I think was really important? So I went through and thought about what I knew how to do, what I had seen at this new company, and I came up with a list of 5 non-negotiables for requirements at the time. And so I had that list. I was able then I wrote those down, and I wrote down just quickly why each of those were non-negotiable to me. I took those back to my peers and shared those. This is what I want to do with requirements, and this is why. And they had some questions about that still, but they were then more procedural questions. So once I had their buy-in, they had questioned me. Once I had their buy-in, then I went back to my team and said, these are the things that we have to do. But beyond that, let's work together to figure out how we are going to write requirements here. And so they had questioned me also. So I had come up really, like I said, with those non-negotiables, and then we created our own process. And that's what worked for me. At my company now, I was hired to come in and lead a team of BAs and change processes, go from waterfall to agile. And I pulled out my list of non-negotiables that I hadn't looked at for several years because it had just become part of our process. And I realized that those 5, I could then reduce to 3. So doing this the second time, I went in and I said, okay, guys, this is what's really important for me as a manager to see your work, what I think that we need to do when we're writing requirements. What else do we need to do for this company? What else do you all want to do? What do we want to get rid of? And it just made that conversation a lot easier. So as a leader, you hopefully have been questioned, like I said, and hopefully questioned politely, but about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I hope that that's caused you to question yourself. But when you can articulate the answers to those changes that you want to make, that's going to make you a stronger leader, and that will help you as you are leading others. All right, so this is where we're going to take just a minute. And this is different in a room with people where I can hear you writing or see you working, and a little bit more awkward over Zoom. So let's just take 1 minute and try and answer these questions. What experiences have influenced your recipe? Who are the best leaders you have worked with? What prepared you for leadership? Just jot down some notes for yourself. What has influenced your leadership journey so far? We'll take a minute and then we'll move on. That, like I said, is a long minute, but hopefully you have written a few things down and keep thinking about those things as we continue. This doesn't taste right. Every once in a while we bake something and it just doesn't quite turn out the way that we want to. I made a Maxine's cake for a Christmas party a couple of years ago, and then made my mom's frosting that I always make to go with it. And I made a peppermint frosting, and the first time it didn't turn out right. So I scrapped the whole mixing bowl of frosting. Peppermint was off. The second time it was just a little too runny. I couldn't get the texture right. Took me 3 times, a lot of powdered sugar, a lot of butter, before I got the frosting the way that I wanted. And that was just an inconvenience of my time. But sometimes when that happens to our leadership recipe, it feels personal, right? It feels hard to recover. So let's talk about some of those setbacks. But we are going to start with a story. So first of all, these are my parents, Joe and Claudia. This was taken about a year ago at a Mardi Gras parade. My parents celebrated 55 years of marriage in June. All right. Next to them is a picture of 2 recipe cards. These are the recipes that were in my grandma's recipe box for Maxine's chocolate cake. You can see the white one. That's the one that she used. And it's more stained. It looks like vanilla has been spilled on it. It's the one that's been used. This blue one, I think, was the original recipe retyped, but this one isn't used. Neither of these, again, are what I use when I make the cake. It's not what my mom gave me when she passed it on. But these were what have been in my grandma's recipe box and now my mom's. And there's a story in my family. I'm not sure when it happened, before I was born or when I was very little, too little to remember if I was alive. But my dad decided that he would bake the Maxine's cake for my mom. And my dad is a great cook. He cooks, my mom bakes, but he found the recipe, he made the cake. I don't know exactly what happened when my mom tried it. I don't know if it was her face. I don't know what she said, but she let him know that it wasn't right. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't right. And he said, well, what do you mean it's not right? I used the recipe. And she was like, oh, yeah, we don't actually use that recipe. So my dad then replied, well, I will never make that cake again. And true to his word, he has never attempted to make it again. But like I said, this picture was taken last spring, 55 years ago. Like that was pretty low stakes in their relationship for my dad to refuse to make this cake again. And it has not been a big deal for them. But when you use the wrong ingredients, how do you feel? Do you feel silly? Do you feel mad? Do you feel unappreciated? What kind of impact does that have? I'm going to guess that my dad felt a little silly, felt a little unappreciated, but again, low stakes. It was a cake, not a big deal. When something goes wrong with our leadership recipe at work, it can be very hard to recover from, whether it's something that a mistake that we made, and we all make mistakes, or just something that wasn't received as well as we thought it was. Those can be really hard to get over. So I told you about my current job, and I was hired at this company to come in and lead the BA team, make changes with process. It was a large team, all things that I loved. I love making process changes. I love working with large groups of people. I am one of those people that truly loves to be a people manager. So I was just really excited. And I had been in my position about 6 months, and I was happy with the way things were going. I was happy with my team. We were starting to make some changes, and I got pulled into a meeting, and they told me that my team was being reorged. They were doing some restructuring, and my team was moving over to product. They wanted me to stay on the tech side, and from like my 13 people, I was keeping 2. And that was really, really hard. And there was nothing like that, was just what was decided for the organization. And I will tell you now, almost 3 years later, like it was a good decision that was made for the way that the team works. I think that it's made a stronger product team. I think that it's made the requirements stronger, but that was really hard for me to take. And I didn't know, did I do something wrong? Were they not happy with the work I was doing? Am I still going to have a job? And so I kind of spent the summer, that happened at the beginning of the summer, and I spent the next few months just sitting back. I did what I needed to do every day. I didn't do much above and beyond that. And I just tried to figure out like where I was in this organization. Was there still a place for me? Did I want to be there? And I did, but it just, it didn't feel good. And that can be really hard to recover from. And so how do we do that? How do we recover when when something doesn't feel good at work, when we feel that we made a mistake or that we weren't appreciated? And kind of toward the end of the summer, we hired a new VP of Enterprise Architecture in. I had a few meetings with her about a project, and she kind of needed a team. And then all of a sudden I found myself volunteering to be moved over under her and work with that. And it ended up being a good move. And I'm going to talk about some changes in a little bit, but it can be hard to recover. And we have to find a way to keep moving forward, even when we just kind of want to check out sometimes, because that's not always an option. What happens to your recipe if you stop baking? So can we take a step back if we need to? If I choose not to make a Maxine's cake again, can I make it again in 5 years? Is that okay? Or could I start baking and make a different cake? Would that be all right? When I told you I like to speak at conferences, in 2018, I attended a conference, Star West, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It's a large testing conference. It's in California. Attended that. It was a great conference. And as I was sitting in the audience during sessions, I thought, I want to do that. Like, I think I have a story to tell, and I want to do that. So that couple months later, I started working on a talk proposal and I submitted it to several conferences. And in 2019, I got accepted to quite a few conferences. And I spoke in New York, I spoke locally, and then I got to go back and speak at Star West the next year, which was amazing. It just felt like this, kind of full circle moment. I wanted to do it, and here I was doing that. Started applying for conferences in 2020 and was getting accepted. Some of those rejected from some of them too. But this was just something that had not occurred to me until that year. And all of a sudden I was loving what I was doing with this, this new opportunity. And 2020 started, I had several conferences on my slate, and we all know how 2020 went, right? And so those got switched to, some of them were canceled, some got switched to a virtual format, which we weren't used to 5 years ago. And so it was very hard to speak virtually and do this talk that I was used to doing in person. And then personally, life got a little chaotic. Turned out that COVID and being home altogether was not a great mix for my ex-husband and I, and we ended up separating and we got divorced, and that's okay. But life just got a little chaotic. None of the things that I was expecting as 2019 closed. And I'm sure that was the same for everybody else as we went into 2020. And so then as I was kind of figuring out what was next, moving into a new house, figuring out how to have a good co-parenting relationship so things stayed as normal for possible for my daughter, and all of those things. In the middle of all this, I switched jobs. Doing these things, I kept thinking, I need to send in a talk proposal. I need to submit to conferences. And I was asked to speak at a few just based on what I had done previously, but that kind of started to go away. And I couldn't submit. I don't know why. I couldn't write a proposal. I didn't want to. And then I had this feeling that maybe I'm not really a conference speaker, right? Like maybe that was something I did a few times, but that's not really for me. And I'll just look back. That was a good memory. And so when we stop baking, when we have to take a step back, whether that is a lateral move or maybe stepping out of management back to an individual contributor for whatever reason, or maybe sometimes we just don't get what we were hoping for at work. We don't get the promotion we wanted, things like that. It can be hard to recover from that. And so I was going through a lot of self-doubt. Like I said, I'm not a conference speaker. And then in the fall of 23, I started thinking about it, and I had the idea for this talk, and I sat down on a Saturday and in about 45 minutes wrote the talk proposal, outlined my slides, and submitted to a few conferences. Was accepted at some, was rejected from some, but all of a sudden I am doing this again and giving this talk and remembering that I do love to do this. And so when we have to stop baking for personal reasons, life just gets too busy and we need to step back. For professional reasons, and maybe we aren't getting what we wanted, aren't on the path that we wanted, that's okay. All right. Our leadership journey is not always going to be a steady line upward. It's going to be a roller coaster. We're going to be all over, and we keep moving. We keep looking for the opportunities. We keep looking for those silver linings, and we remember what we're good at, what we like to do, and we try and find our way back to that. So with that comes our resiliency strategies. All right. I've got a couple quotes up here. So this first one, I love Peloton. Jess Sims, if you are a Peloton person, is an instructor. And I was doing a class about the time I was putting this deck together for the first time. And she said in a class, everything happens for an opportunity. And I love that. And so, sometimes it's not what we planned, but we get opportunities that we didn't expect. So everything happens for an opportunity. You can do hard things. No, you get to do hard things. That is my quote as a life coach to my 11-year-old. All right. Probably got something like that from Peloton also, but constantly reminding her, like, we get these opportunities to do things that are hard, and we are just going to grow from them. We're going to find out what we like to do, what we want to get better at, and what we're okay never doing again, but we get these opportunities. So what helps us do the hard things? And I hope you all know what your personal resiliency strategies are. Exercise, time with family and friends, curling up with a good book, whatever that is that helps you personally recharge. That's important. but what helps you do the hard things at work, and what are things that are hard for you? For me, I have a really hard time with those difficult conversations at work when I have to deliver bad news or somebody's performance isn't great. I don't like to do that. I don't know that anybody does, but I don't like to do those. And I have found for me, I have to practice that. And I practice it at home. I practice it while I'm getting ready in the morning. I think about all of the things that I am going to say, because in that moment, those conversations usually get emotional, right? Sometimes there are tears. Sometimes people get angry. They are upset. And so it helps me react better if I've thought through everything I'm going to say and if I've practiced saying it. And that way it helps me get everything out. So that's one of my resiliency strategies. When I have something hard to do, I try and practice it beforehand. So what are the things that are hard for you to do? And what can you do to make those things a little bit easier? You might not ever enjoy them. That's okay. I don't ever want to have those hard conversations, but what will make them easier for you to do? What if I want to bake a different kind of cake? What if all of a sudden I don't need Maxine's cake anymore and I want to try something else? What are your growth opportunities? I told you about how I, started working with our enterprise management team. And I don't know that I really loved everything that I was doing there, but I was doing things I had never done before. And there was a lot of work that was great for me personally, professionally, something, like negotiating some contracts and working with third-party vendors on things like that. I hadn't had an opportunity for that. I don't know that I love it, but I've had some experience with that now. What are the things that you can do? What are your growth opportunities? Whether you were looking for them, whether you were recognized for your hard work and you're given a growth opportunity that's right in line with what you thought, or if it was on maybe one of those roller coaster dips and you didn't know that there was going to be a growth opportunity, but what is there to help? I don't even like silver lining necessarily, but how can we just keep moving, keep adding to our personal skills so that when we do have the opportunity that we want, we are ready for it? Can you change the ingredients? You've got pictures here of me with a cake decorated for fall for my birthday. My daughter a couple of years ago, she has a summer birthday, so we've got a watermelon, but it's all, again, the same Maxine's cake. When we are baking this cake, it calls for buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you can use regular milk and put in a little vinegar, and that will sour the milk, and you can use it and it really won't alter the cake. But if I'm baking a chocolate cake, I have to use cocoa powder, right? I've got to use something. I've got to use that chocolate to give me that chocolate cake. So what ingredients in your recipe can you change? And what do you have to keep? So what I'm talking about there are what are the things that are just innately part of you, those life experiences that we talked about at the beginning. For me, being a teacher, there are things that I have learned with that, things that I can't change, things that I don't want to change. But what are the things that I can change? What are the things that I can work on? I am not always the most empathetic leader, and especially in meetings, sometimes there's an art when someone presents an idea to making sure that everyone feels that their ideas are valid and good, and there's a way to make people feel good even if that idea might not be the one that the group chooses. I don't always have that skill, right? Sometimes I just say, okay, thanks, and move right on, but that doesn't always land well. So that's something that I need to work on. That's an ingredient that I need to change. So what do you know about your leadership style that you're going to keep? What are the ingredients that are always going to be there that maybe you can tweak a little bit, like that buttermilk? And then what are the things that you might want to switch out, substitutions that you can make, things that you can work on to enhance your recipe? And then who are your taste testers, right? We all need taste testers, and those are the people who are going to try what we've made and say, that is delicious. But if it's not, they're going to let you know too. All right. They're going to let you know kindly, but they're going to give you that feedback. As a leader, you need to find someone who will be your taste tester, right? And you probably hopefully you have a good group of work friends I used to have somebody that I worked with, and she was a UI designer. When I first started speaking at conferences, she would always look at my slides and she would make little tweaks that I wouldn't notice. But she would change font size. She would stand at the very back of the room and she would just move things over a little bit just to get this, the best visual appeal. And that was great. And she was really good at that. She didn't love to write. So whenever she had to write something formally, she'd always have me proof it. Okay. So who are your taste testers? Who's giving you that feedback? Who do you know that you can really trust to say, you know, like, how did I do on this? Or what do you think of this idea? What did you think of that presentation? And trust those people to give you feedback to help you grow. Okay. All right, our next questions here. And again, if you just take, what time is it? If you just take just a minute, think about this. What do you want to do? What are you afraid of doing? What ingredients can change? Who are your taste testers? Those are the things we just talked about. So take a minute, write these things down. Nobody else is going to see it, especially what are you afraid of doing? Okay. I am still afraid to submit to conferences. I don't tell anybody about it until either I get that acceptance or that rejection. And then maybe I want to talk about it or maybe I don't, but I'm still a little bit afraid to do that. I still feel a little bit like an imposter. So those are the things like, what are we going to tackle? We're at the beginning of the year. What do we want to do this year? And maybe this year you just want to keep the status quo, and that's okay too. But take just a second and think about these questions, okay? All right, and we are almost at the end here. So I would like you to have your cake and eat it too. I hope that you have written some of these things down or thought about them. What's on your recipe card? What are you going to create? So we have talked about your leadership strengths, your resiliency strategies, your growth opportunities with your underlined there. We are all on a different journey, different times in our lives, different things that we want to accomplish. Those change from year to year for all of us. But what do you want to do and how can you continue to grow your leadership strategies and your leadership profile? Okay, so I'd like you to continue to think about that, continue to think about these ideas as you move forward after tonight. And then finally, I would not want to leave you without the recipe. And so I have this up here, and I can't remember, Thea, if you have a copy of this or I can share it with anybody, but this is the chocolate cake recipe that I use, different from those other two that I showed in the earlier picture. And my mom's buttercream frosting that is delicious on top of it. So happy to share that recipe with anyone who needs it. And that is all I have for tonight. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Can anybody relate to her situations as she presented? I know I can.
Hello. So as for myself, I really enjoyed your presentation because you made a correlation between cooking and baking. And when I have completed some of my presentations, I utilized it for business practices. So I tried to use integration as incorporation. So that's how I used it for food. So when you mentioned it as a way to work on your soft skills and leadership skills, I definitely can appreciate that because it's less technical and it does help polish you a little bit better. So thank you for that point.
Welcome. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
I like the idea of making a cake and then testing it, because then you can make notes of what you could do better next time. And sometimes you don't know what went wrong. It's like, was the oven too cold or whatever? But you can always make the improvements. And especially in leadership, it's going to be different with every person. But I love the analogy. Good job.
Yeah.
Hi, Christine. Thank you for your presentation. I can definitely relate to some of the examples that you gave. I've never really had like a formal leadership position at my organization. And I feel like I have the potential because of my problem solving skills and just my work ethic. How do you overcome that imposter syndrome? Like feeling like you have the potential, but not sure because you've never really stepped into that type of role before.
Yeah, I think that's hard for all of us in whatever we're doing. I was at a company where I was an individual contributor, and I was doing a lot of leadership activities, a lot of training, a lot of mentoring, but I wanted to move into management. I wanted to add that to my career. I ended up in that position. I had to leave. I had to find something else because I kind of feel like it felt like I had been pigeonholed, and maybe I hadn't, but it felt like I had been pigeonholed into one specific. And so I found another opportunity. And then that was terrifying to walk in as a manager. And when I had not ever officially done that job before, and try to figure out how to lead these people. And I think that that's where it's important to go back to those life experiences, those things that, I can only do the things that I'm comfortable with. I'm not good at pretending. So I can only show them who I am, right? I can only be me. And for me, that was how I got the job, by being very honest. I have not been a manager before, but I've done these things, X, Y, and Z, that are leadership activities. And I'm looking for this opportunity. So for you, look for those things that you can do. Is there training in your company that you can give? Is there a mentorship program that you can be part of and mentor new hires? Or are you just doing that on your team, maybe naturally? Those are the types of things. Like, think about what you're doing that are management type of activities, so that if you interview for that job, you can show that you've done those things. And then you can let them know, I haven't managed a budget, I haven't written a performance review, but I feel that I can learn those things because I've already done leadership activities in other capacity.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
You're
And
welcome.
I'm definitely want to try to reflect on the questions that you shared and try to help me on this leadership journey.
Good luck.
Christine, one of the questions you asked was, think about leaders that have impacted you or influenced you. And I want to tell you about a leader that I had that turned my perception of what a leader was around. Whenever I would have a one-on-one meeting with him, and he was very consistent in making himself available to us for these, he would always say, "What can I do to make your life easier?" And it was so great it was so different than what I'd ever experienced before, because it wasn't that I had something specific, but just knowing that he was willing and available, that I could go to him and I'd say, I have a challenge here, or I need direction, or I have a problem. And it just opened the door for me to be absolutely free and trusting. And so that increased the trust factor in the whole team whenever he started doing that.
People make such a difference as we learn who we want to be as leaders. That's a great experience.
I'm sure some of us have the experience of having leaders that we don't want to emulate too. So we learn from those too. I have a friend who says every single person is valuable to your life. Some people show you what you want to do, and some people show you who you never want to become. What other questions do we have for Chris?
I have a question.
Okay.
So, okay. So in a position that I've held before, I came in and they gave me like a managerial position. And I think that it rubbed people incorrectly because they didn't see how, someone my age or, whatever, nuances that they thought that I could not have held that position. So what I wanted to know and explore was, how can you offset that type of I guess, reputation, because when I initially came in for the job, I knew the stuff. I've taken classes, I have the certifications, I've done similar jobs before, but not to that ranking. But people didn't like it because I didn't go in the regular flow. You know how you start from the bottom, then you work your way up. So I didn't work my way up. Like, in their eyes, I did a different position and I worked my way up there. But from them, they're just seeing me and they're like, you didn't work your way up over here. So I just kind of wanted to know, like, how could you kind of negate those types of thoughts?
That's so hard, especially when you come in as a manager and skip those steps that people have assumed that you should do. I think that the right answer, right, is that you should not worry about them and just put your focus on doing your job and do it well, and your success will show that you have those credentials. But that's really hard to do sometimes too when you're working with a group of people and you're not maybe getting forming those relationships, or feel like it's as easy to form those relationships with them. And I think that that's the biggest part of it, is showing that you do know your stuff, even if you didn't go in their order, but forming relationships, learning the culture, especially if it's a brand new company or brand new team. What is the culture of that company or team? And sometimes I think we do have to slow down a little bit, because sometimes we are really excited to get in and implement changes and make a difference, and not everybody else is ready. And when I was talking about the requirements changes, when I first came up with those like 5 non-negotiables, that was not like, that's a real short story, but it was not a great start on making those changes. Going through that and then going to a different company and knowing what it had been like before made it a lot easier the next time around, on realizing how I had to get buy-in from everybody, how I really wanted to involve the team in it. And so I think the relationships can't be overlooked, even when you are confident in your abilities and in your knowledge, because there are just company cultures and team cultures that the relationships will clue you into. Of
Agreed. Thank you.
course.
We are down to our last few minutes. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. In the chat, I did put out the link to the new BA Digest. It's one of the best publications and it's current. I encourage you to look at that. Also, if I see any jobs for business analysts, data analysts, or anything in the United States, I created a job group in LinkedIn for that, so that things that I see in my email, or if I see them in the posts that are not in the job section, I'll drop them in there, and I encourage you to do the same. Perhaps that would be beneficial for some of you. I also have a group for Canada. If you're in Canada, I can send you that link. Okay, join us next week. We are going to be talking to, let's see, who is next week? Let me share my screen one more time. And I'm not going to go on presenting mode because
Alicia's
Thank
next
you.
week.
Alicia asked to be rescheduled. So next week we actually have cybersecurity. Am I sharing the
Oh.
right screen? I don't think I am. Let me try that again.
You are.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Has she
Renita's
been
gonna,
updated in the Excel spreadsheet? Sorry, in the spreadsheet?
no, I'm waiting to get the information from Esther. But
Okay.
Not is going to be showing us, talking to us about cybersecurity, things that we need to be aware of as we're gathering requirements. It's critical as we get more people that are doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. Also on February 6th, join me at the Bluegrass chapter for a workshop on the RACI matrix. And I've added some things to the RACI matrix that bring accountability and remove any ambiguity. So it makes it a whole lot nicer to work with. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Christine, Chris, thank you very much. I miss Kansas City immensely, and I hope that you're enjoying it everything. Let's see, it should be beautiful this time of year.
Thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Y'all reach out to Chris on LinkedIn if you have any appreciation to show her. I think that would be nice. Okay, thank you everyone. Talk to you next week. Bye.
You guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.